my attitude was, I don't want to be a grumpy old man sitting on the sidelines saying how great it used to be. I want to be involved in the emerging trends.
Yeah.
I want to be an agent of change in the industry.
Yeah.
And so that would explain, for example, how I made the transition to things like eSports, which in the beginning didn't seem like a natural extension of what I was doing in the gambling industry.
Yeah. For this episode, I had a chance to talk to Stephen A. Crystal, who came all the way from Las Vegas for the ICE Expo back in London. And he managed to spare an hour of his time to get on this interview. He's a very inspiring entrepreneur. He's gone through a lot. He's been in the industry of gaming and gambling for about 30 years. And he shared his journey, his thoughts on entrepreneurship, what it takes, the future of gaming, having an open mind, and a lot more. So I really hope you enjoy this interview. I know I really did. It's full of value. So do take the time, take some notes, and enjoy the interview. Thank you very much for taking the time, Steve, to do this. I know it was a long trip from Vegas. You've got a lot going on, so really appreciate the time that you're taking to do this. First of all, welcome to Manchester. How are you finding it?
Excellent. Cold, but a great city and great people.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying it.
Is this your first time in the UK?
It's not my first time in the UK. I come here every year for the last 15 years to the ICE Gaming Show, which is the casino and casino technology show in London. And this year, because of some work I'm doing with Betfred, which is one of the companies based here in Warrington, I came early to see their operation and to see the area. Yeah.
So, we're already touching up on a bit on casino, so I think, our listeners, want to know why is you're going to ICE and stuff like that. So just to give some context, could you give a quick intro to your story, kind of like under a minute intro?
Look, for 30 years I've been in the casino industry. I started in my 20s as a lawyer representing the industry in the middle of the USA, where riverboats were being added, and I was an expert in land use around riverboat gambling. And then I got out of the practice of law in 2000 and joined forces with a partner, and we raised a bunch of money from Wall Street and went to Las Vegas and acquired 6 casinos there. So that began a different path as a casino owner, and we did that for several years. And then after we sold those assets, I became an investor in gaming technology, and that's what I've been doing since the mid-2000s.
Yeah. So after graduating in law, did you even think about that you're going to be into gaming, casinos and stuff like that? Was that something that crossed your mind before?
Totally by accident, time and circumstance. I think a lot of things happen that way in life. You're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I think the main lesson from it was I was open to whatever path. It ended up being something that took advantage of my skills. Previous to going into law, I was in politics, very familiar with grassroots campaigning and doing everything from local campaigns to presidential campaigns. And so when riverboat gambling came along, it required a local initiative, referendum. So I was able to do everything from run the campaign to lobby for the legislation, to help implement the developments, the finance, to help advise on running the casino from a regulatory standpoint. So I didn't know. I didn't go to school for it, but it ended up being a good transition.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting. Like, you never know when you have an open mind, is it?
You never know.
So being in the industry for what, over 25 years now?
Over 25 years.
I imagine it changed quite a lot, hasn't it? So if you were to take away one or a few sort of bigger things, what do you think changed the most within the gaming and gambling industry?
Look, when I got into the gambling industry in the late, the late 1990s, there were casinos in Atlantic City, and Las Vegas, and in other places in Nevada. By the time 25 years later, there are now casinos in over 40 states. So basically, my career, the first part of my career was spent seeing gambling expand in the United States, and all that involves. Expansion means eventually there'll be consolidation, and consolidation means that you'll need technology to solve issues of consolidation, because what you're trying to do is get efficiencies in the business. So I went from being involved in the expansion of gambling to being involved in the technology, and now we're going through what you've already been going through here in the UK for 30 years, which is the expansion of online or digital gambling. And that's new to the US, whereas it's very commonplace here. And so I've been investing in companies in Europe for the last 10 years because I know that's the future in the United States. And now we're in a situation where those relationships in Europe are being cultivated to bring that expertise to the United States.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how hard do you think, I mean, how important and how hard was it for you to adapt, basically?
Look, I think anything in life, in business, is about your attitude.
Right.
Obviously, I've relied a lot on international relationships to grow my knowledge base, whether it's in sports gambling or casino technology or eSports, which we'll talk about. Sometimes the best information comes from elsewhere. Sometimes people give a little rub on Americans being, closed-minded or, a little bit conceited about the U.S. And I think if your attitude is positive, if you're open to other culture, then you can learn more. And I think in the industry that I'm in, there's a lot to learn that doesn't organically exist in the United States.
Okay.
So if I want to learn it, I have to be prepared to be open. And so the number one rule that I live by is flexibility, openness, so that I can learn. Yeah. And that's how I would view, my experience in Europe so far.
And something I was really impressed talking about being sort of open-minded and adapting to the industry is that somebody that's been so long in an industry, so experienced, you're really doing a good job of being on social media, on really adapting to technology. You've had, your own podcast as well, the Crystal Report. All of these things are quite, I imagine they're quite challenging when the world just moves so quickly sometimes. When social media came in, right? How hard was it for you to actually transition into that, and how has that affected your business?
It wasn't hard for me in the sense that, look, I'm 53 years old. You can go one of two ways, and I have lots of friends who are my age and older, who have been leaders in the industry, but who become irrelevant.
Right.
And so I had a decision to make, which is, do I slowly become irrelevant because I'm not willing to engage in social media, or do I try to engage in social media my way? Obviously, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I have a lot more experience and things to offer. So I just decided to do it my way. Frankly, the most criticism I got was not from the new audience I was trying to track. Yeah. They were very receptive. But the old-timers, were scratching their head and criticizing, and I said, that's fine.
How do you ignore that noise?
I don't know. I mean, some of it in Las Vegas, it's a industry town. It's a relatively small community, and you hear noise. But my attitude was, I don't want to be a grumpy old man sitting on the sidelines saying how great it used to be. I want to be involved in the emerging trends. Yeah. I want to be an agent of change in the industry. Yeah. And so that would explain, for example, how I made the transition to things like eSports, which in the beginning didn't seem like a natural extension of what I was doing in the gambling industry.
Yeah. So something you've said in a previous interview is that most things fail, right? And from what I gather so far, you like to go into industries early,
right? Well, still developing. What do you look for when you go into, whether it's you personally or through your management company, when you invest in brands and people? Like, what do you look for?
Look, for me, it's obviously after 25 years, I developed certain instincts about what I think has a chance and what I think doesn't. But I would say 99.9% of the decision for me is the people.
Right.
I make bets on people. And obviously what I've learned in life, I wouldn't have to, it has nothing to do with the gambling industry. It could be any industry. It could be any aspect of life, is that people are unpredictable. Yeah. You can study. You can get to know them, particularly if you're open to doing things internationally, which I am.
Yeah.
There are cultural differences. There are differences in communication. Yeah. There are differences, not so much in values. I think certain values are universal. But I wouldn't say that...
Give me an example.
Well, I think people, universally, I think people want to be fair. Mm-hmm. I think universally, I don't think people are raised to try to take advantage of other people. They want to be fair. I don't think the issue is the commonality of values, but obviously there's a difference in experience. And I think the biggest problem I have is I'll make a bet on people and I'll be disappointed because when I think they should act a certain way, they don't.
Yeah.
And obviously at this stage in my life, time is getting shorter, not longer. So if it's not working, if the people issue is not working, then I have plenty of things to move on to.
Of course, yeah.
So I would say that if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to make something happen, I think you should be open. You should be solicitous. Be open to talk to people. But at the end of the day, it's about, obviously it's a chicken and egg. You're new, so you don't have the experience. So you got to lead with what you have.
Yeah.
It could be just an earnestness. It could be that you're going to work hard to make something happen. This is all you can do. You can have a good idea. You need funding. You need support. So the people who succeed with me are people who are honest, who are straightforward, and who are willing to work hard for their dream. And it's then up to me to decide whether to take a chance to help make it happen.
Okay, so a lot of our audience are young aspiring entrepreneurs. So let's say, somebody wants to pitch their idea to somebody like you for investment, right? What would you say they should focus on the most?
Look, you have to have a clear story. So you have to show me, in some respects, how you make a pitch tells me how you're going to run the business. I have to be looking at you and saying, okay, if I give this person $1, are they going to spend it right? Are they going to be good fiduciaries over that resource? Are they going to get a return on that investment? So I think you need to, if you don't have the answers, if all you do is have a good idea, but you don't have the market research, and you don't have the business model.
So fundamentals, basically.
Fundamentals have to be strong. It's okay if you're young to say, I don't have experience. That's why I'm here. I don't have resources. Okay, this is why I'm here. But there is no excuse for not thinking through your idea. If you're just trying to get somebody to throw money at your idea with no, path to success, then yes, you'll eventually get someone who isn't so smart to give you money if you ask enough people, but that's not something I'm interested in.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think that a pitch deck or a presentation, for investors has to show the best side of you, right? How important it is, because it might be because I'm Lithuanian, we're very, very straightforward people, right? And we'll say as it is, just straightforward to you, right? Some people, especially in the UK, they don't like that. They see it as rude, right? But in a pitch like that, do you feel like they should present their problems as well and their issues, or should they just talk about the potential and the good things?
Look, obviously, I'm originally from New York City, so I like direct communication, and that's been one of my rules. So I like someone who's direct, good or bad. But look, a pitch deck is just words on a paper. Obviously, I see hundreds of pitch decks from all over the world in a year.
So what stands out?
I'm more interested in, first, I know the space. If it's something that I think is a good idea, then I'll give them credit for that. It doesn't matter what they've put on paper, because maybe they're not the best at putting things on paper. I go for the idea. Is that something that needs to be brought to the marketplace? And if the answer is yes, then I look, is this person have enough skills and enough trustworthiness that it's worth my time to bring them along? Even with that, the chances that we'll succeed could be less than 20%. My job is to increase it up to 100%. And obviously I could make 10 or 15 bets a year, and a few will pan out, but this is the nature of what I do.
I imagine being on social media right now doesn't help reduce that number of pitches for you as well. What would you maybe say not to do for people? I know there's people sliding into DMs and saying, hey, can you give me money? Like, I've got this thing, right?
I don't, you know what? I don't, I do put myself out there. It helps. It helps to create a flow. Yes, I would say 95% of what comes my way is not in my bailiwick. But I'm not so important, or my time is not so precious that I don't have 5 or 10 minutes. So I have some basic rules. I don't schedule time with people. If you're trying to pitch me, then just call me up and pitch me. If I miss you, I'll call you back. So I'm not you could spend more time scheduling this or that than you do looking at an opportunity. I'm smart enough in the industry now to know what I'm interested in. I don't need to go through a whole process. So for me, the best way to interact with me is just hit me between the eye and say, here's what I want to do. If I'm interested, then I'll say, let's schedule a time with my team, and we'll get into the details. So to make a pitch, make it easy on the person you're pitching. There are some people, I scratch my head. It's not like I called them and said, can I look at your deal? They called me. So understand who your audience is. That shows me that you're perceptive. If I say to you, just call me, and then you keep asking to schedule a time, the likelihood that we'll even get to first base is zero. So I use these filters. If someone can figure out who they're dealing with. The other thing that really bothers me about some young entrepreneurs is they don't do the research on who they're dealing with.
It's a shortest attention span, basically.
Well, it does, but I mean, look, know who you're dealing with. That's not to say that you need to know it inside and out, but know generally who you're dealing with. Do your homework. I would, of course, do that. If I was seeking to speak to somebody because I want something from them, I would know who I'm dealing with. So to me, it shows laziness if you're not willing to do your homework. So these are just some small things, but in general, I'm not so interested in how nice the pitch deck is. I have certain questions. What's the idea? What's the competitive landscape? What do you bring that's unique? What do you bring that's proprietary? Can you protect what you're doing, or can anyone else do it? How much money do you need to get to your first dollar of revenue? How much money do you need to get to profitability? These are basic questions, and it could be answered by a deck, or it could be answered in a 5-minute conversation. This is how I do it.
So always, it does come down, save me time, give value, fundamentals, basically.
Pretty much.
Right. Okay. Now, last year, you've launched egamersguide.com. Was that, first of all, why? And was that the first maybe time where you started really exploring esports?
Look, every year, I used to invest a certain amount. I was disciplined in other companies. I would take a minority interest. About 5 years ago, I switched my thesis and I said, I'm going to just invest in my companies. So these are companies that I incubate. And what I did, actually, the holding company for eGamers Guide is a company called Versus. Versus the World. It's Versus, VERSUS, the.world. And that is a conglomeration of esports assets in the media side of the business. So what I'm going to be doing is creating what I think will be the world's largest affiliate company for esports. And what I mean by that is I'm going to control traffic. I'm purchasing a company. It's not public because it's not a public company, but I'm purchasing a company in New York that is involved in making content for the esports industry.
Yeah.
They make content for 100 websites dedicated to esports. And they manage a traffic of about 100 million monthly active users.
Wow.
I am leveraging those assets with a traditional sports betting affiliate company model. So I'm going to be selling sports picks for traditional sports like NBA or basketball, your favorite, but also for esports.
Yeah.
So I will be a one-stop shop for anything esports related in terms of information, with the ultimate objective of creating a massive affiliate company for wagering.
Wow,
and this has been a project I've been working on for 4 years. I've been methodically acquiring the different pieces to this business.
Yeah.
And we're out in Wall Street. Sometimes I go out and raise money like I do on behalf of other companies. So we're raising it for ourselves. We're raising about $10 million. Actually, eGamers Guide will be rebranded to GG Guide.
Okay.
That'll be our new domain, and it will go into basically have a presence in every country, in every esport, in every sport. I've hired some of the best handicappers in the world who will cover the traditional sports, and I've hired probably the best handicapper in esports to be part of this company. So we will be, something like this doesn't exist. I can say that, but this is an example of a company that I've incubated and that's in the esports space and that combines the things I like about esports.
So that's very unique, I think, in the approach, especially coming from the gambling world. That again shows the adaptability aspect of it. So what are the biggest challenges when you need to transition like that and think about how can you leverage the new technology to use?
Look, the biggest challenge is bringing along the old world. So if I'm in the casino industry and they say, yeah, we like this esports, put it in there. I'm like, well, it's not that simple. We can't just put it in there. You have to be committed to it. You have to market to your customer base. You have to be open to having that customer base here. The products look different. When I say I'm doing an affiliate, I've got to go to these old line handicappers who've never heard of esports and explain to them what it is. And so a lot of the challenge is simply education. Yeah. And the way that I accomplish that is by investing, learning, and traveling, and becoming an expert, a subject matter expert.
This is not your first business, and probably not your last. You've done quite a few ones and successful ones. What does it take, in your mind?
Look, it just takes, obviously, as you get older, and you mentioned earlier, most businesses. I've said most businesses fail. Yeah. They do. Failure is what gives you the best lessons. Obviously, I say a few things. I tell this story. There was a friend of mine who produced a Broadway show, or tried to, over 15 years, and then when it came out, it got panned by the New York Times. Mm-hmm. And I said it's not bad that you failed. It's bad that it took you 15 years to fail. Right. So I would say.
When do you know? When do you know to stop and say, right?
Well, this is the sign of maturity. So I think that's the number one lesson. It's okay to fail, but know when the game is done and move on to something else.
I imagine it's quite hard, especially when you just start out. It's your first business. It's your baby. Yeah. Being very romantic about it. Yeah.
I'm not romantic about any of these things.
Do you have no emotional attachment?
No, zero.
Yeah. Is that something an entrepreneur you think should have as a trait, not to be emotionally attached?
I don't know. I mean, entrepreneurs are like people. They have different personalities and different strengths. What I've learned from my own experience is it's okay to fail, but fail quickly. But pick yourself up. You're always measured not by how you fail, but how you pick yourself up. Right. So get back on your feet.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think you need to stay fresh in your thinking. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is to be open and to listen and to learn. Mm-hmm. So these are good skills. Obviously, the more you do something, the better you get, because you make less mistakes. Mm-hmm. You don't make the same mistakes.
Right.
And eventually...
So ability to learn, basically.
Basically. You get to the point where you've failed enough that you don't fail the same way. Mm-hmm. Obviously... given the success and failure rate, very few entrepreneurs will succeed in a big way every time they go out, but there are some that do. I pay attention to those people because if they're doing something that's extraordinary, I want to see what they're doing, see if I can learn anything from that. But to be honest, people like me anyway, it's about the process. I've been involved in some of the most exciting industries and growth of those industries. I mean, how much fun is it to run around the world, for 30 years talking about gambling, learning about casinos and online gaming and sports wagering technology and trading operations. I mean, it's fun. And so, if you do something you like, that's another lesson. You're likely to be successful at it over the long haul.
And I imagine you speak to a lot of young entrepreneurs, a lot of maybe startups or young brands, stuff like that. Is there a difference between them in the US and the UK, for example, or maybe somewhere else in Europe?
Look, there are, and again, I don't believe in stereotypes. I believe in looking at everyone on their merits. But we are humans. Humans do stereotype. But look, there are some cultural differences between people from the UK and people from the US. But at the end of the day, I'm open. I was here meeting one of your local companies, Gamer Wager, yesterday here in Manchester. They're doing peer-to-peer eSports, which is an interest of mine. From my standpoint, I've done 3 or 4 investments in that, tens of millions of dollars. I wasn't really looking for anything, but these guys put their proposition forth in such a way that I'm open to looking at it. So, I could have heard the same pitch theoretically in the U.S., but I happened to hear it here. And the merits of the idea were strong enough to warrant further examination. So again, it gets back to the point, if you're going to do your job, you got to be willing to listen. They asked for the meeting because they saw me on social media, and I said yes. I spent 3 or 4 hours with them. Again, this is what I have to do. I'm open to listening because I never know where the ideas will come from.
So you've mentioned quite a few things that I think young entrepreneurs should look out for. But what would you advise yourself 25 years back?
I don't know that I would do it different. I mean, I've had a pretty good run so far, and I'm trying to position myself to continue to do it.
Seems like you're just getting started, to be honest.
Well, I have a fair amount of energy. I really get energized when I travel. I get energized meeting new people, doing things like this. I just I enjoy being part of living. And yes, the world is going much faster, and change is happening faster. But that's scary on the one hand. On the other hand, it's exciting. It keeps you going. So from my perspective, if I was looking back 25 years, I had some good mentors. My mentor was my partner in the casino business, Dave Barrick. Together we spent 25 years acquiring casinos and doing some of the biggest deals in the U.S. in the casino industry. And he used to say, number one, we take every meeting. I was taught this when I was 25. Take every meeting. It doesn't matter who it is. If we don't like what they're saying, we don't take another meeting. Number two, we answer every call. We don't play hard to get. We don't not return our call. We take care of our business. And number three, we used to we were present. If we wanted to look at a piece of real estate, if we were going to buy a piece of real estate, we went to the real estate. We kicked the dirt. This is old school thinking. We didn't just sit in our computer and sit behind a screen and hope people wouldn't recognize us. We got out there. This would be my biggest advice. I know culture has changed. I have kids. They're in their 20s and their teens. I get it. Times have changed. You can have a group of people sitting around a table texting each other, even though they're sitting there, could be talking to each other. I get it. But some of these old school notions work. Looking someone in the eyes, getting out into the world and touching and feeling it. So if I was giving advice, it would be that.
I think social media really opens up the world, right? It really gets you connected. Like, we couldn't have connected if not for social media. But then that next step, I think it's really important that it is face to face. There is actually the
You
human
have to
aspect
show
of
up.
it.
You have to show up.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of the things I do. And I've had people take me up on this all over the world. I say, look, I like what you're doing, if I do like it. And I say, why don't you show up?
Yeah.
I would say 70% of the people take me up on it and show up in Las Vegas. And if they do, I make time for them. Sometimes I give them 2 days of my time. And sometimes it leads to something and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it means a lot to show up.
Yeah. Shows character and that you care,
Right.
actually, doesn't it? So what excites you about the future most? Whether it's esports or overall, what are you most excited about?
That's, I don't, one of the nice things is, like, I never know what to be excited about. Like, I sat in a meeting before I came here. I was in Tampa for the week.
Yeah.
Getting ready to come to the UK, and I was talking to somebody about a hardware device that you put on your brain, you put on your head, and what it can do is measure your thoughts.
Yeah.
So if you think about something, like a song,
Yeah.
it can then translate it into what the name of that song is. So, this is artificial intelligence meets kind of futuristic mind melding. So to me, what's exciting about the future is the things that I don't even know about, that I'm opening to learning about, and seeing how they apply to what I do know about.
Yeah.
And so every day I come with things that, whether it's artificial intelligence or it's machine learning, and the applications of that to the things that I already do, how can that make the gaming industry better? So I'm always looking at things that I can apply to what I do know. What I do know is not insignificant. I basically have relationships with the gambling industry in every country, in every city in the world. The technology, the operations, brick and mortar, digital. I mean, that's a big knowledge base.
Yeah.
And so what I look for is leveraging that with new products like eSports or like artificial intelligence, or maybe one day a hardware device that measures your thoughts, so you don't have to tell somebody something, it just does it automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit or split.
Yeah.
You're playing blackjack just by thinking about it.
Right. Talking about human connections. Yeah. So for businesses that want to get into esports, I think again, I think more and more of them want to. What would you advise them to look at first? Like, where should they start?
Here's what I would say. Look, the simple fact is more millennials or the younger demographic are watching Twitch than any other medium. Yeah. So if you want to be relevant, you have to attach yourself to content that people are watching.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the audience is very smart. They know if you're pandering. They know if you're not genuine. Yeah. So a half-hearted attempt to associate yourself with esports and a short-term effort will not work. It's wasted money. Yeah. So you need a sustainable strategy that identifies you with the content in a way that is sustained and genuine and real.
Yeah.
And it means it has to have higher and higher production value. It has to have very clever ways to to kind of associate those brands. These communities are not all the same. There you have players and you have watchers. You have females and males, each with a different reason for being part of these communities. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, for sure. I think over time what will happen is there will be more programmatic ways that people can plug into that, because not everyone has the resources to develop strategies. Now, companies like Daimler, Mercedes-Benz, or who have sponsored major League of Legends tournaments, these are major sponsorships, and there's only so many of those to go around. I think there's a ton of activity. What I'm fascinated by is the semi-pro, the local stuff that goes on, the grassroots stuff. This is where I'm coming from. You can never go wrong associating with the grassroots.
Absolutely.
So
that's where the passion is.
That's where the passion is, and I think there's so many more people that can partake in that. So I think the opportunities are going to be endless. I think that ecosystem will support esports and create more funding for the infrastructure that's needed. So I think we've only seen just the beginning, and I think it's going to grow and become more, more formalized.
One thing that I've noticed, and I think social media has a lot to do with that, because a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that really go out there, it's entrepreneurship is popularized, and everybody wants to put entrepreneur, business owner on their Instagram bio or something like that, right? Now, I personally feel it's a good and a bad thing, right? For multiple reasons, but I really want to know what you think about the fact that it's being popularized and people really are getting into entrepreneurship more than ever. But sometimes it might be for the wrong reasons. And how does that affect those people that are maybe not made for entrepreneurship?
Look, I mean, I'm not a big thing into titles or labels. Something is what it is at the end of the day, regardless of what title you put on it or what label you put on it. But what I would say is this: when you pay someone's paycheck, then you start to feel what it's like to be an entrepreneur. When you go without paying your paycheck so someone else can meet their obligations, now you're getting to see what it's like. So
I guess my point is that more people are now experiencing that, and it might lead to depression. It might lead to something else that is not necessarily a positive thing. Whereas before you wouldn't even think about that.
I don't know. I'm reading a book now that talks about what it used to be. We thought that what the objective of life was to strive for happiness. The thesis of this book is that that's not the object of life. Life is a struggle, and that's the beauty of life. It's not the thing to be avoided. I kind of come out that way. Life is a struggle. As you get older, you learn more realities. We kind of our younger people, my kids, we try to shield them because we're parents. We don't want them to see the bad things in life. That's more characteristic of my generation. But my view is, these are things that happen. They're universal. They've happened throughout time. People get depressed. People go up and down. People have been entrepreneurs. People have, had traditional jobs. Things haven't changed so dramatically. The fact that more people call themselves entrepreneurs is because more people are seeking less traditional roles, and they're trying to be more self-dependent. There's nothing wrong with that. They can do it until they succeed. If they can't succeed, then they got to go do something traditional. I'm okay with that. So labels aside, I like what I see in that respect, but I think in terms of the ups and downs and what people are experiencing, it just is what it is. Life is tough. It isn't meant to be a joy, and there could be a question whether you're really living life if everything is roses and I just don't. It's not my view of the world.
How do you deal with work-life balance, and do you think that thing exists at all?
Look, for me it's different. I mean, I was married. Now I'm married again. The first marriage, I just focused on work. That's what I love doing. And
so do you think if you weren't running businesses that wouldn't have happened?
I mean, I just think I am what I am. I think you got to be true to yourself. If you love what you do, then it's not work. So for me, it's what I love to do. So I found somebody who loves the fact that I love doing what I do and supports that I do it. I mean, you make these adjustments, but there's not the balance. I don't know what that means. Lots of books get written, lots of gurus get made. But at the end of the day, look, there's a few common rules. Try to do something you enjoy because you'll like doing it. Don't be a jerk. Be a nice person, because you can get the same stuff done being a nice person as being
nice
a jerk.
Is very underrated still. Yeah.
I would say be a nice person. There's an old adage, do unto others that which you would like done unto you. I believe in this. These are simple rules to live by, and do the best you can. And you're going to fall down, or you're going to feel sad, or nothing's gonna go exactly the right way. I used to say when good things happen, I knew right after that 3 bad things would happen.
Yeah.
And you just have to learn to kind of absorb it and keep going. This is my view. Keep it simple. Don't make it more complicated than it already is. Yeah, 'cause it is. So these are simple rules. I don't know. I used to have people look at me and say, well, how do you balance, or you should do this and you should do that. And what I came out with now at 53 is be true to yourself. You are who you are. That doesn't mean you stop trying to improve yourself. You can always be a better person. You can be a nicer person. You can be more considerate of others. We don't stop that process ever. But be true to yourself, and the rest will fall into place.
Yeah. No, I love that. So what's next for Stephen A. Crystal?
Look, my focus, sports betting got legalized in America. I'm working with one of the best companies anywhere in the world. Just happens to be here in Manchester, Warrington.
Yeah.
Betfred, Fred Doan is an entrepreneur who's led that company, much like some of the famous entrepreneurs in America. I think that brand and what they represent belong in America. I'm going to work very hard to make sure that they have a presence there with the right structure. I'm so impressed with the type of organization, their focus on customers and people. I just think they're the best in the industry, anywhere in the industry. So I'm excited about that, and that's kind of my focus for the foreseeable future.
Okay, yeah. That's great. So where can people connect with you?
LinkedIn, I used to say, you can follow me on LinkedIn, Stephen A. Crystal. I've run out of the ability to add people, but just reach out to me there. Yeah. I've got Instagram and Twitter I use, but people are so mean on Twitter. I don't know what the value of that is, to be honest. It doesn't fit my personality. Yeah. Instagram is nice because I like to take photography.
Yeah. I really like your Instagram.
Yeah. I like to kind of tell the story of what it's like to travel the world and be open to things. So you can, Stephen Allen Crystal, you can follow me there. But, the main thing is I'm not hard to find. You found me through a connection to someone else, and I answer every call. So.
Yeah, I was really, really, really impressed of how down to earth you are. How like the thing you keep saying is being open and open-mindedness, and that's something that I really, really appreciate in you and in people in general. I think that's major, and only through that, through collaboration, through relationships, I got to meet you as well.
Awesome.
So I think you bring a lot of insight. I think I love the fact you're very adaptable. You're not afraid of the outside noise and just do your thing and what makes you happy. And I think that's very valuable and very impactful. So just wanted to say a big thank you for taking the time. It was really great chatting with you. I'm really excited to see what's next because you're working on some amazing stuff.
Jonas, what's your favorite NBA team?
Boston Celtics, hands down, since I was about 8 years old. It started with I liked their jerseys, to I liked their history, I liked their ethos. Then the big three came out of Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce, and it just went from there.
Who's the greatest player ever? Is it LeBron James or Michael Jordan or someone else? James Harden?
The easy answer will always be Jordan.
Yeah.
But if you were to ask me who's my favorite player of all time, it will have to be Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, okay.
Simply because he brought it every single game. He never took a day off in the game to be demotivated, not into it. His passion and everything was on there every single day, and that's something I try to do in my daily life as well.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And have a safe trip back.